Stand by. Is this thing on?
Yes, Dan.
Oh, hello.
You're listening to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
This just in.
Breaking news to report.
We are live.
Old newscasters
Can we just say former?
Sure. Former newscasters reunite behind the mic after more than 20 years.
Old news is good news.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to Old News with Dan and Carrie, and we have a great guest for you today, Paul Pitas, who worked at Channel 27 back in the 1970s and 80s. Not too much in the 1970s, but he also spent many, many years, about 2/3 of his career in public relations and corporate communications. Most recently at Culver's, which I think almost everybody knows what Culver's is. And I don't know about you, but I could go for a Culver's custard right now. Paul, thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
I wish I had a coupon for you. I'll send you some. I still have a drawer full.
I know. I need a kids meal coupon, please. Those are always what I liked.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Yeah. Paul, my wife and I have this ongoing argument. She always wants to get the kids meal at Culver's, and I said, "Well, you're not a kid," but she always says, "No, that's okay. It's allowed. You can have a kids meal."
It's called a kids meal, but restaurant owners look the other way. Whatever you want, you get. So it's no big
I'm with
deal.
Teresa. That was always my favorite because you got a little smorgasbord of all the good stuff.
What people don't realize is the burger that's in the kids meal is the same size as the burger that you would get at any other time. So
Really?
yeah, it's
so
the
you're
same.
just telling yourself a bunch of lies then, really. I'll just have a kids meal.
Yeah.
You're giving away all of the old, all of the secrets. You guys ready for something?
Oh yeah,
goodness.
bring it on.
The ban on strippers and city parties.
That is
Now,
Paul
Madison officials are
and
considering
Patty
yet
Lowe
another ban.
doing the
This
news
time
at
on
Channel
profane
27.
language.
Way back when. About what year would this have been, Paul?
That would have been probably 86, 87 in through there. I left 27 in 88, so that was in the end of my career. Patty was my last co-anchor.
And then Eric Zakowski, obviously a really good reporter at Channel 27, and he went on to another career too, working for, I think it was it the the state in investigations, I think. So very interesting.
Yeah, he was cracking down on cyber attacks on kids and child pornography online and things like that. He really made a career out of himself in that area.
Yeah, great stuff. But so, Paul, you were there at WKOW. I think you started in, what year was that? 1977, you said.
77, yeah.
1977. And did you start as an anchor and the news director at that time?
No. So when I came to 27 in July of 77, it was right in the middle of the state employees strike. But I came in as a weekday reporter and the Sunday night anchor at 10 o'clock. Didn't have a 6 o'clock on Sunday, and we didn't have any news on Saturday.
Right.
So it really was a recap of the entire weekend, and that's what I did when I first got there. Yeah.
So were you producing that too, Paul?
I was producing it. I was writing it. I was anchoring it. I was editing a lot of the film for it. And back in those days, it was just me and a photographer for the day.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How many people were in the newsroom? Just the two of you?
It was a quiet day on Sunday. Absolutely. And it was for 10 o'clock. So we'd go out and cover stories. Someone would come in on Saturday and actually cover stories and run some film and write a script. And so we had that already in the can, so to speak. Old TV expression, in the can.
In the can, right? Yeah.
And then we go out and I would just do some stories during the day, and then we'd put them together, and that was the 10 o'clock news on Sunday night.
And did you have to consult with anyone, or would you have a phone call with the news director, or you were just, it was kind of carte blanche?
If there was something hot going on and I needed a second opinion on something or a question, I would call my news director, but pretty much I was pretty much on my own to make decisions on, what the lead was going to be and how long each story was going to be. We had to fill time, so obviously I had to figure that out. But no, we were a pretty sparse crew compared to what's going on today.
Who was your news director at that time?
So when I first came here, it was Roger Mann. So Roger Mann had actually he was the news director in the 60s and early 70s, and then he left, and I met up with him in Lafayette, Indiana, where I went to school at Purdue University.
Mhm.
And my last semester there, I took an internship at the local TV station, WLFI-TV, the Pulse of Lafayette, Kokomo.
Whoa.
Very small
Yeah.
station. And so Roger was the news director there. I was just a kid out of school, and he mentored me. And then he left to go back to Madison in the late 70s. And about 6 months later, he called me up and said, "Hey, I got a job for you."
Oh,
So
wow.
that's how that happened.
That's pretty cool. So were you
Yeah.
a broadcast major at Purdue?
No, mine is not a straight path, Carrie. I started out in aeronautical engineering,
Oh,
and then decided that that wasn't for me. So I graduated with a degree in business with a minor in marketing.
What scared you off of aeronautical engineering?
The physics and the chemistry were chewing me up and spitting me out.
oh
Yeah.
boy.
That was it.
That's what I would think too for me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I got out of that, and then again the internship was I needed an elective, so I took this elective, and I got to work a semester at the TV station, and I loved it. And then two people in the news department got married to each other and left for Florida. Now this was a very small newsroom, so that left quite a void,
Mhm.
and so they had to hire some people quickly, and I was one of them.
What affiliate was WLFI?
CBS. We were
They were
CBS.
CBS.
Yep.
Okay. And then, so you went up to Madison, following basically Roger Mann. Then I kind of
Yeah,
said,
pretty
"I
much.
got a job
Roger had
for you."
asked me
Yeah.
to come up, and I came up as the Sunday night anchor and weekday reporter. And then, Roger left, and I had some opportunities to move up and do some anchoring in weekdays. And at the end of the day, I was a co-anchor, and then I was eventually a news director as well. So I was carrying a couple pails there for a number of years.
How did
Did you?
that evolution happen of becoming news director?
Well, Roger left, and we went through one news director that didn't quite work out, and the management gave me my chance, and so that gave me the opportunity to be in a leadership position and get some management experience and mentor young reporters and photographers, and so it was a good learning experience at a relatively young age.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They said, well, Pitas will do it.
Yeah, he'll do anything.
He's a hard worker.
Ask Mikey, he likes it.
Right. Right.
So you said you were co-anchoring. You had a co-anchor when I mean, not on Sunday night, but then when you started anchoring during the week, you had a co-anchor.
Yes.
You did.
So during the week, early on, I co-anchored with a woman by the name of Suzanne Bates. I don't know if
Yep.
that name is familiar to you, but
Yep. I remember Suzanne.
Suzanne
I
was an
grew up in this
excellent.
area. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a Sun Prairie guy, right?
I am. So we used
Yeah.
to we used to watch you all the time. Yeah.
Okay, so Suzanne was a very, very talented reporter and anchor, and she went on to much better things. She went on to Tampa, and then Philadelphia, and then Boston, and then she opened up her own communications firm. So she was a very, very successful woman, and I learned a lot from her as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And then after that, Andrea Ernst the name might ring a bell. I worked with her. And then at the end of my career, it was Patty Lowe.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And Patty was still at the station when I got to the station.
And
Where
me
did
too.
where did Andrea Ernst end up going?
So
Was she still
Andrea left 27 to go to 15, Channel 15 in the mid 80s. And so she went there, and then Patty Lowe came up and became my co-anchor.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What was it that, you said you were at WLFI as an intern. What was it that bit you about the profession, about the career? What was it that you went, hey, I kind of want to do this?
It's kind of hard to describe, but I just enjoyed telling stories. Whether it was a very serious story or I have some fun story, I've always enjoyed writing, and so that was always fun for me. And then to put pictures to it was just kind of icing on the cake, and I just enjoyed the challenge of doing that.
That's definitely evolved in a theme of our podcast that, I mean, almost everybody who's been on said they love telling stories and they love being
Yeah.
a storyteller. And there are certain storytelling markets that are more so, picture driven, video driven than others. And it's been interesting to hear everyone's journeys about that.
And Madison is such a unique news town. It's a great news
Mhm.
town. I mean, you've got state government here, you've got the university, and then, you can drive 3 miles and you're in rural America. And there's
Mhm.
a whole host of stories there right in your backyard. And so there's such a variety of things to cover.
Agree.
Well, and we were chatting off air before, and you mentioned that you grew up in a town outside of Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
So you're both a Bills fan and a Boilermaker fan, apparently. So
Yeah, I went to Purdue, and I actually went to the Final Four this year because they were in the Final Four, and
yeah.
that was quite an
Ooh.
experience. That was a
I,
lot of
I
fun.
was I was pulling for him, but I was going to say, what ended up keeping you here in Madison? Was it just kind of where you landed? You liked it? Your family was here, or was what kept you here?
So, yeah, I always had a love affair with Madison. I really have always enjoyed being here. And then, in the 80s, I got married. My wife and I started having a family. We bought a house. And I really, you look at, taking the next step in a TV career, you're going to a bigger market, hopefully.
Right.
But I didn't relish the idea of being a weekend reporter in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That just didn't do anything for me. And so I began to pursue, how can I apply my skill sets in other arenas? And so I
Mhm.
began exploring that a little bit. And one of the nice things about being in the news business is, you get to know a lot of people, and you get to know a lot of people that know other people. And so
Right.
networking becomes a little easier, and you begin to sit down with people, and you say, I've done this, and I'm looking for the next challenge. What are some opportunities that I should be looking at? And so I went through that for a little period, and then I got linked with the Dean Health System. And they were looking to create this corporate communications PR department. They never had one before because everything was channeled through St. Mary's Hospital. But as Dean got bigger, they needed their own presence, and so they asked me to head up this new department, and that gave me the opportunity to grow and stay in my hometown,
So
or
you left
stay
news.
in Madison,
Yeah,
not my
right.
hometown, but
Your
Madison,
your new hometown.
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
new
So is
hometown.
that
Your
when you
adopted town.
then, yeah, you left the news business then? Were you like still sitting in the role of news director thinking I might like to leave this at
Yes.
some point, and that gave you the opportunity to exit?
Yes. Yep.
Mm.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
That had to be hard, Paul, being a news director, being an anchor. I mean, you're mentoring people, you're kind of keeping track of people's stories, you're editing, you're doing all of that kind of stuff that news directors do. And then you're also getting on the news desk and anchoring. And I imagine you probably reported once in a while too. That has to take a toll on you.
It did. It did. Yeah. There was some reporting, probably not enough of it,
Yeah.
because sometimes if you stay behind the anchor desk too much, you lose touch a little bit with the area that the market that you're covering. But because I was news director, because I was co-anchoring two shows, those times were few and far between. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, hiring young people, young reporters, some of them right out of school. They deserve to be challenged. They deserve to be mentored, and you need to take the time with them to help them develop in their areas. So it was a grueling few years, but I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I wouldn't have traded those years for anything in the world.
Yeah, and don't they just almost train you for anything? I feel like if you can get through those times when you're juggling so many roles and the stress level is high and you come out dignified at the end, that it's like you can pretty much do anything.
I say that when I went my transition from television news to corporate communications, I say it this way: I had a new appreciation for what long range planning was when I went to corporate communications. In television, long range planning is figuring out what you're going to do for the 10 o'clock news as opposed to
Right.
the 6 o'clock news.
Right.
And in corporate communications, long-range planning might mean working on something that may not even come to blossom until 6 months or a year later, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's took some getting used to, the pace of it.
Yeah.
You're used to, in news, you're used to cranking, for me anyway, it was 2 newscasts a day.
Right.
When I moved to the corporate communications world, that was a little slower. Things are slower to develop, and your accomplishments are measured a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
In news, sometimes you would start the next day all over with a clean slate. Not in corporate communications. You go to work, you come home, you go back the next day, you kind of pick up where you left off. So there took some getting used to.
Did you enjoy the relief of that, or did it seem kind of boring at times?
No, I never found it as boring because I was learning healthcare. I mean, I
Yeah.
knew as much about healthcare as anybody because you worry about your own healthcare, but now you're learning about the business of healthcare. And that was challenging. My wife will tell you that it was strange to have me around at night.
I bet.
I mean, she said I was like a stranger in the house. What are you doing here? It's 8 o'clock at night. You should be at work. So
Were you
that took some getting used to from my family.
and were you able to sit and watch the news without feeling like a sense of urgency that you had to be involved?
Sometimes, when I left 27, it was the week before something very tragic had happened in Madison. It was Dan, you'll probably remember the Dane County coroner shooting at the city county building where
Yep.
coroner was
Aaron
killed.
Lind.
Aaron Lind.
Yeah.
And he
Yep.
killed Bud Chamberlain, and I believe
Yeah.
another police officer was killed,
Mhm.
and then there was someone else, I can't remember. But anyway, that happened a week after I left broadcasting. And I remember
Wow.
just being glued to that, thinking, where should I be? What should I be doing?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah. You
happened
almost
so
feel
quickly.
helpless then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I have to thank you because when I came to Channel 27, and then I believe it was when I started to anchor the morning show, you actually, I don't know if you remember this, but you actually called me once and told me in certain words what a good job I was doing.
Ah,
And,
that's
and
very nice.
I don't know why. I think maybe I was involved in some story that was involved with Dean or something, but you gave me some encouragement. And encouragement goes a long way, especially from somebody who's not working with you. So I appreciated that, and I will never forget that. And I just wanted to thank you. I don't know if I ever got to thank you. You probably don't even remember it because you probably
I'm
did it for a
sorry,
lot of
Dan, I
people.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Yeah.
that one.
So it's your fault. No.
Okay. Well, I'm
But
glad I made your day.
you made my
Yeah.
day. But I was going to say too, when I got out of the business and I went into public relations, I had that same feeling as you. And I had a boss who was a really great guy. And he always told me, Professor, you got to sit and think for a while. You got to think because, there's a lot more strategy involved in public relations than just reacting. And, in TV, you're reacting a lot of times. And so I can relate to what you say about the different pace as a public relations person. But boy, you obviously learned how to do it very well because you were at SSM, well, Dean SSM. Was it SSM when you left or had it
No, I
become,
was still
no,
Dean
okay.
when I
It was still
left.
Dean when you left. So you were
Yeah,
there for like 22 years, correct?
just about. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and, in TV, I mean, you just mentioned a story that happened after you left, but is there a story or series of stories that stand out in your mind when you were at 27 that, you still look back on and go, yeah,
Yeah, I
those,
think the story that for me that stands out the most was the Barneveld tornado in
mm,
1984.
Mm.
right. Yeah.
I mean that town was completely destroyed. It was very surreal. I remember that morning when all the stations were dispatching crews to Barneveld. I remember a photographer by the name of Lenny Dibvik, who we had sent out, and he had just got on scene, and he got on the radio and he said, "It's gone." I'm going, "What's gone?" He goes, "The town, it's just gone."
Oh my gosh.
And I'll never forget that radio exchange with him. And that kind of set the tone for the rest of the day. I don't know, I think as many as 10 people were killed in that tornado, but
Yeah.
it was, I mean, that was, we were broadcasting all day. I don't think I'd ever experienced a story where we were breaking in every half hour with updates. And I remember Mike Nelson, the old weather guy from Weather Central, Mike Nelson. He and I put
Mhm.
together an 11 o'clock special all by ourselves,
Oh, wow.
just highlighting what had happened. And then of course the subsequent stories going back the day after and 2 days after, and I'm sure the people of Barneville were getting tired of seeing news crews, and
Yeah.
after a while, who could blame them? Yeah, that story probably sticks out more than anything else.
Hmm.
Well, and Carrie, you might remember, I think we were doing 10-year anniversary stories like not too long after I got to the station. So
Mm.
that stayed, that kind of hung over, I'm sure, the whole area for many, many years. And
And
Oh, yeah.
that event really, really changed how local TV reported on weather. It was
huh,
after that event that all three stations started investing in advanced radar and other forecasting capabilities to track these types of things. And that kind of redefined how the local TV stations treated weather events, both during the summer and of course during the winter as well.
Was Weather Central at that time? I mean, when we were there, Weather Central was like NASA. I mean, it was a huge operation and they provided forecasts for stations and newspapers and all over the country. Was it like that when you were there?
Yes, Terry Kelly, who is the father of Weather Central,
mhm,
he built an unbelievable organization. He was cutting edge. Not only did he first with a lot of the weather technology that he brought and the different types of clients that he had. I think Weather Central forecast was the official forecaster for the Milwaukee Brewers. Uh,
mhm.
the the state of Iowa streets department or whatever. I mean, they had a lot of different clients that they were servicing. And then ultimately he got involved in away from weather and got into news computer technology. We were
Right, right.
saying goodbye to typewriters, and we were
Mhm.
we were on computer keyboards, and we were kind of to some extent, we were kind of a test lab for Weather Central with some of the technology that they were developing. They actually outfitted Dan Rather's CBS newsroom with their newsroom technology, computer
Really?
technology. Yeah.
I did not. So you were at the
That's
station
pretty
when
cool.
that was happening?
Yes. Yep.
Hmm.
Interesting. That's
Yep.
really interesting.
Yep.
When you were anchoring, I mean, what form were your scripts in? Were you just literally typing, ripping off the typewriter and walking onto set, or how was it?
Well,
Did you have a teleprompter?
we did. So when we were on news computer, the news computer system was called News Star. That's the name
Mhm.
of it. It's called News Star. And we would do all of our typing on the terminal, and then we would send all the scripts to the printer, and they were five copies for each one.
Mhm.
One for me as the main anchor, one for my co-anchor who wasn't necessarily reading that story. That was a different color. The director had one color, the floor director had one color, and then the teleprompter had a completely different color. And so the teleprompter was actually all of those teleprompter scripts taped on a conveyor belt with a camera looking right at those scripts and that conveyor belt scrolling the scripts past the camera. That was our teleprompter.
That's incredible. And who got to tape all those before every show?
The teleprompter operator.
The floor
I
crew
don't even know
people,
if they
yeah.
I don't even know if they have teleprompter operators at the stations anymore. I don't think so.
No, no, they do it
I don't even
themselves
think they
now.
have camera people anymore. I think the cameras are all
No, it's
mechanical, right?
it's all
Yeah,
automated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been marveling at that. In Pittsburgh, I go into the station at WPXI a couple times a month, and they started moving the camera. I'm like, whoa, Jake, where are you? And he was sitting way over there running all the things, and there goes the cameras. I was like, what is happening?
So you guys have already had John Stofflet on your program. John,
Yes.
I hired John into TV back in the 80s, and
Oh, it's your fault. Yeah.
it's my fault.
Yeah.
And John went to Seattle, and then he came back to Channel 15, and of course Channel 15 built that brand new building,
Mhm.
and I was hoping for an invitation to get a tour of that building, and I mean that's like a spaceship when you go in there.
Oh, it's amazing. It's
And
really
I
nice.
I'm going, it would take me 2 years to catch up with this technology,
It's
You
after
said, give me tape and a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
yeah.
Does anybody have any
Paul-
masking tape?
Yeah. Paul, when you were first there at the station, were they using New Star already, or were you using typewriters and triplicate I think it was eight copies. Yeah.
We were using typewriters.
Yeah, same.
Just the
Yeah.
old IBMs, and I was using film, which was interesting because when I was at WLFI in Lafayette, Indiana, Roger Mann had purchased what we used to call them Sony squirt guns, which were the original mini cams, videotape.
Oh,
And
Cutting
so
edge.
I learned on videotape, and then when I came to Madison, I had to learn film, which is the complete opposite of what most people go through. First you learn film, and then you went into videotape. And I struggled with that because as reporters, we had to sometimes shoot our own film.
Yeah.
And I used to waste a lot of film because I was used to videotape where you just use it over and over again, right?
Just
With film,
rewind
you
and do
can't
it
that.
again. No.
So the
Well,
the photographers used to chew me out about, well, you got to watch what you're doing here,
That's something I wanted to talk to Greg Sheevy about when he was on, and we never got to it. But he always used to
Yeah.
tell me, like when they were first shooting, and you probably did it this way, you tried to edit in the camera. You tried to go wide, medium, tight in the camera. So when you
Oh.
got back to the station, your sequence was all set up for you pretty much. You might have to do some minor editing, but as much editing as you could do in the camera was a great thing, the film guys would say.
Especially if it was a spot news story with very close to news time, because you weren't going to have a lot of time to mess with it, right? So you had to shoot it, process the film, and then pretty much edit it quickly. And so
Yeah.
editing in the camera was very important.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother way of thinking about it. Now it's just like, oh yeah, do we get this? And with everything digital, you can just swap pictures wherever you want.
I
Whole
don't
different
think I could
ballgame.
do that. I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. They were getting rid of the people who were camping on the UW campus with all of the protests and things. And you
Yeah.
look at that footage, and almost everybody has their cell phone out,
Yep.
capturing what's happening. It's amazing to me how much footage there is now.
Yeah. And the problem with that is people are trying to show everything with their cell phone, whereas there are individual pictures and individual shots that are worthy of capturing in itself rather than the
Right.
whole broad thing. And that's what we miss sometimes. We're
Yeah.
such in a hurry to paint the broadest picture. I got this angle, but well, what about that person? And what about this person? In terms of, focusing in on certain things within the broad picture.
Right.
And I know this will air later, but
Yeah.
this morning we had all of this campus protest, and most of the cameras were ground level. I would have loved to have seen. I kept telling my wife, "Gee, I wish somebody would get a camera up on the third floor of one of those buildings and shoot down so we can get a better idea of how many people are there." And it was too tight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
or a drone.
I'm sure somebody maybe tonight on the news, we will see some drone footage. I don't know.
Yeah.
Typically they'll get in there for that. Yeah. Interesting days. I mean, there has been a lot of big news stories. And we were talking about before, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but we've been talking about Channel 27, obviously, and we have great memories, but also recently there was kind of the other side of the TV news business where some people we know at Channel 27 were laid off. And, That's tough. That's a reality of the news business too. And you feel terrible for those people who lose their jobs. Hopefully they'll find a job somewhere else. But did you ever have to lay people off when you were a news director, Paul?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did. There was a time when I think it was 84 or 85. I think this is just before we had an ownership change. We had to lay off one. We were asked to lay off one person from each department, and
Mm.
I had to pull that trigger within the news department, and production had to do it, and engineering had to do it, and those are sad days. And you know, we feel sorry for the people that we let go, but ultimately those people land on their feet
Mhm.
and they do well.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part is managing the people that are left behind,
Mm.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
because they're all wondering what's next. When's the other shoe going to drop? When is it going to be me? And that's the hardest part of being a manager, is being able to keep those spirits up and keep everybody focused on the job at hand. But it's tougher to deal and manage the people that are left behind.
Did you have a specific strategy in keeping spirits up, or just being present, or keeping your door open, or what would you do?
Keeping the door open, being positive, encouraging everybody that we've got a job to do. I mean, I couldn't wave a magic wand and make everything all better. I could only do what I could do.
So your experience
And
as a
listen,
manager,
and
oh,
listen.
and listen,
Yeah.
yeah. And your experience as a manager in the TV business obviously helped you then when you became a manager at Dean, because I imagine you probably had quite a few people reporting to you when you were at Dean.
Actually not.
No.
I
Oh,
probably had more people reporting to me in TV than I did at Dean. I had, as I recall, I had two people at Dean reporting directly when I started. Maybe I had five or six at the end, but
okay.
we also worked very closely with an agency that helped us with, gave us public relations support and marketing support, and so I had to manage that process as well. But yeah, the more you deal with people with their ups and downs, that helps train you for other things that come up. And again, you try to be a good listener, you try to be flexible with people, and you know, just get through the day.
Mhm. All right, let's talk about the transition to Culver's. Let's talk about cheese curds. So,
Okay.
how did you land with Culver's?
Well, to be honest with you, full disclosure, there were some serious changes at Dean in
Mm.
2010.
Mhm.
We had a new CEO who was brand new, and for the first time outside of the Dean system. And a lot of changes were made, a lot of people changes were made. Uh, People were leaving. And I was ultimately one of those people that left. I guess I should say trees were falling everywhere, and I was one of the trees.
Ah,
Oh.
And so that was it. And I was saddened by that, but I did a lot of networking, and landed about 4 or 5 months later as director of PR and communications for Culver's, which I really, really enjoyed my 10 years there. I actually worked at Culver's for 10 years. I retired from Culver's on the day of my 10-year anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
did
pretty
they give you
cool.
cheese curds?
You know, when you work, when you went to college, they used to talk about the freshman 15 from a
Yeah,
pound standpoint.
yeah, yeah.
There is such a thing as the Culver's 10.
Oh, I bet there is. I
I
bet
I
there
mean,
is.
bet.
because not only we were in the corporate office, but the corporate office, and I don't know if you know where that is, but it's in Prairie du Sac, and it's right
Yeah,
on the Wisconsin River. It's very
Mhm.
pretty. We
beautiful.
have a
Yeah.
test kit. We have a test kitchen. We had a test kitchen there.
Huh.
And
Oh, that's like
so
my dream.
we had a test kitchen where menu items were experimented with and new things were tried. And gee, let's sample this. And we got some new custard flavors. We want to test this out. What do you think of this flavor? Or what do you think of this burger? What do you think of this new coating on this French fry? Well, you know, you eat your lunch all day long if you're not careful.
Well,
That's pretty cool.
and you were there during a time of great expansion for Culver's too, weren't you? I mean, they
Yeah,
really grew in the last 10
they
years.
really, really grew. When I joined Culver's in 2010, they had 427 restaurants.
Yeah.
And now I think this fall they will probably hit 1,000 restaurants in 26 states.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
people
just
in
read,
the
oh, go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, I was going to say, I live in Pittsburgh, and some people now around here are like, have you ever eaten at a Culver's? I said, of course I've eaten at a Culver's, but it's, other people in different areas are now experiencing for the first time. And my friend Diane had just recently gone, and I said, tell me you got the cheese curds. And she's like, I don't think we did. I said, you would know if you ate
You
the
know.
cheese curds, you would know. There's no going back.
So most of the restaurants are in the upper Midwest. That's where most of them are. But in the last number of years, they've expanded to Arizona. Florida is huge. I mean, I think there's
Mm.
close to 100 restaurants in Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, the southeastern part of the United States has exploded.
Hmm.
And so they're doing very, very well. One thing I might mention, the difference between corporate communications and public relations in healthcare and Culver's is a lot different.
Yeah.
Mm.
At
Explain how.
Culver's, and it affects the way you communicate as a communicator. So at Culver's, Culver's has its own language. For example, we don't have customers. We have guests.
Hmm.
Oh,
We don't
That
have
makes sense.
employees. We have team members.
Right.
We don't have an annual convention. We have an annual reunion.
yeah, I like
And
that.
so you have to remember these things as you're communicating that this is the new terminology, which is a lot less corporate than healthcare was.
That probably flows
Probably
from the
more fun.
top because, Craig Culver, and it's really kind of a family-oriented organization, I understand. So that must
It
just flow
is.
right down from the top.
Yeah, I mean that's Craig. That's Craig, and Craig and Lee, the co-founders of Culver's. That's the way they talk. That's the way they think, and that filters throughout the organization. Absolutely.
What else sets Culver's apart? I mean, there's a lot of quote unquote fast food restaurants out there. I mean, they are slower in how they prepare things. Everyone who goes there knows they're going to make the food. It's going to maybe take longer than a different fast food. But what other things set it apart?
So we are really not fast food, and that's one of the
Mm,
things that, in corporate communications, we had to stress. We're not a fast food restaurant. We're more fast casual.
Mhm.
mm,
We are cook to order, which
yes.
means that we don't begin cooking your food until you order it. We don't
Hmm.
have burgers sitting in warming pans
Heat
at like
lamp.
some other
Yeah.
restaurants. You can get it just about any way you like it. And the other thing I think that sets Culver's apart is the hospitality, the service and hospitality aspect. You get it when you walk into a Culver's, you get a different feeling that you might get walking into another concept.
Hmm.
Mhm. Well, and I think recently I just read they were voted the number one, fast casual restaurant in the country.
I
So
saw that, and obviously I'm not with Culver's anymore since I retired, but that was I believe some food critic that is known for putting these lists together on an annual
yeah,
basis. I don't know who it was, but they did get some favorable press out of that.
yeah.
Besides testing everything in the test kitchen throughout your day, what was a typical day of work like for you?
Well, a lot of it was communication with the media, both the local and the trade media. Working with Nation's Restaurant News and a lot of these other trade publications that cover food and cover the restaurant industry, and establishing good relationships with them and communicating with them about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Also with the local media. The local media here in Madison was, Culver's is homegrown here, so there's an interest there in what we're doing. A lot of it is what I call issues management, where you're looking at things that are happening in the industry. They might be some good things. There might be some things that might challenge us. To understand that and to help our leadership understand what's happening, what we might face, and how we might deal with things. I'm also dealing with crisis communication. There are times when things go south in a network of restaurants nationwide that we have to deal with and manage negative publicity. We also used to do media training for franchisees. So these are individuals, owners who are going to be opening restaurants in their own communities and helping them deal with the local media and the importance of establishing relationships within their communities with government people and city people and all of those things to help better ingrain themselves into the community.
With your experience in news, did you kind of spearhead that, or was that
Oh,
already
I had a whole,
in existence?
we had classes of franchisees, probably three classes every year of new franchise that would come in, and I'd get them for a day. And so
Oh,
we would spend a half a day just talking about the warm and fuzzy things about how we describe our burgers to the public and the words we use and all of those things, the importance of establishing relationships. And then in the afternoon, we turn the heat dial up a little bit, and we talk about some things, some challenging things that they might have to deal with in a negative sense, and how to deal with guest questions and media questions, and basically help prepare them for the things that they might see. Always telling them that if they ever needed help, we are the support center. And so me as director of public relations, I should be on their speed dial to help them whenever they feel that I can lend a hand. So
that's nice.
yeah.
Did you have a larger team at Culver's than say you had at Dean?
No, I had one individual that worked directly for me, but then we had again an agency relationship
Got it.
in the PR side of things that provided a lot of support to us, particularly from a food product standpoint, and in promoting new food items, new burgers, new fries, new custard flavors, and they supported me in that way.
The cheddar pub burger.
The pub burger, yeah, the pub burger concept went over very, very well.
Yeah.
For a limited time only.
I know that's a bummer, but it's always good when it comes back.
It always comes back. Yeah,
I know. That's nice.
That's how you fuel demand. It comes back.
I always like the chicken salad with the
Oh, yeah.
pecans and the strawberries. That was a good one.
That's a good one. That's a good summertime favorite, isn't it?
To
So
everyone
healthy.
who loves great food, let us make you a meal the Wisconsin way.
McDonald's has Ronald McDonald. Culver's has Craig Culver. Is that good to have, the owner as the face of the organization in commercials and things? How does that help?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Craig has been the face of Culver's ever since 1984 when they first opened. He's been in all of our commercials just because he's the founder. He's passionate about his brand. He's passionate about his people, and people resonate with that. It's very authentic. Sometimes you'll see Craig in a commercial with one of the chicken supplier or the beef supplier. Well, these aren't actors. These are real people that work with Culver's and have worked with them for years. And so I think consumers, the public, appreciate that authenticity. There's nothing fake about it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's very Wisconsin.
Yeah, very Wisconsin. I really loved working with Craig because he was just so easy to work with, and very passionate about what he does for a living. He used to say, "We're not in the restaurant business. We're in the people business that happens to run restaurants." So he'd always
That's the
put people,
difference.
he would always put people first. He always said, if you hire the right people, everything will take care of itself.
I think that's a good lesson for any industry.
Great
Exactly.
advice. Great
Exactly.
advice.
Mhm. Well, you've done a lot of things over the years. What are some of your absolute career highlights?
Mm.
You know, I think, I think about that. I think about helping mentor young people, whether they're reporters or whether they're young public relations people. Uh, helping them grow, helping them develop. I always felt that when I felt true success for myself is when I could see someone develop, just to their fullest extent. And I would always get more excited about watching another person grow and develop than my own growth and development. And I always felt good about that. And so that, developing people is probably the thing that I have appreciated the most.
Well, and just doing this podcast, Paul, you've touched a lot of people, a lot of people's lives who, came through Channel 27. Greg Sheevy mentioned you, John
Yep.
Stofflet mentioned you,
Mhm.
Sandy Cowell. So many people mentioned, and it just from, and then the tentacles go out. Those people you hired or worked with at 27, and I'm sure many more along the way. So that's got to be very satisfying.
It is.
Yeah.
It puts a smile on your face to know that I had something to do with that.
Yeah, that's
Might have
great.
been just a little bit, but I had something to do with that.
And
Do
you
you?
encouraged Dan when he
I
was
encouraged
beginning.
Dan,
Right,
although I don't
right.
remember.
Yeah. Well,
See, you
I
you touch
remember
people
it.
you don't even know.
It
Yeah.
couldn't have been that big a deal.
Yeah. It probably wasn't. Not to you, but it was to me. Is there anything you're still wanting to do? Anything you're still thirsting to do, or have you done it all now, Paul?
Right now, I've been retired for about 3.5 years. I left
Yeah.
Culver's about 3.5 years, and I'm enjoying life. I'm playing golf a couple times a week. I'm doing some volunteering. I do Meals on Wheels once a week.
I do as well.
Yeah, I do that. I'm on one of the city commissions for the city of Fitchburg. I'm involved in, as I said to Dan earlier, before we started rolling, I'm associated with Channel 3's Call for Action, which is allows me to be part of a team that helps consumers with issues and consumer complaints. And I kind of like it because I get to dust off my journalism skills a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
And find answers to questions that people have. And I've got 4 grandkids, and it allows me to spend more time with my grandchildren. So life is pretty good.
Hey, how about what was your worst job ever, Paul?
Worst job, I haven't had a lot of them.
Good.
So, which is unlike today, where people tend to, every couple of years they make a move. But back when I was going to college, and during the summers, I would go back home to Buffalo, and I would work at a factory. Westinghouse was a factory in Buffalo, and I was working as a laborer, just sweeping up metal chips. They were building these in this part of the factory. They were building these casings for these huge motors, and so they'd what am I saying here? Anyway, they were metal chips everywhere, and they had to be cleaned up on the floor, and that was my job for 8 hours. I had to clean up metal chips, and
Builds
I used to
character.
come home really
Yeah.
smelly.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. And then you start seeing metal chips everywhere in your
Right.
house, even though they're
Right.
not there.
This is that it was that reason that I made sure I completed college. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life doing that.
Understandable. The question I always like to ask people, Paul, is do you have on-air bloopers that have stuck with you all these years?
Yes, but I can't say it on TV.
Can you hint at what it might be?
So I was doing the sport when I was at WLFI.
Yeah.
I was doing sports one Sunday night, and I was doing the football scores. And I was trying to say Kansas City,
Ah,
but I said Kansas. Shh.
yep.
And I tried to correct myself, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Kansas," and it came out the same again.
And then they
Once
thought
is
you
not
really had
enough.
something against Kansas City. They're like,
Yeah.
what's this guy's beef with Kansas
Right.
City?
Well, he is a Bills fan, so it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
it makes sense, right?
Yeah, good for
That's
you.
hilarious.
So anyway, that's one that stands out. I'm sure there are others, but that one really stood out to me.
The
And
worst
did you
ones
catch
are.
flack?
Oh yeah.
What's that?
Did you catch flack from viewers?
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Did they laugh or did they give you a hard
They
time?
all laughed. They
Yeah.
all they took pity on me. I was just this young kid out of school.
Yeah, the worst ones are when people try to make you feel better about it, like, oh, it wasn't that bad, and then oh, it wasn't that
It
good.
was that bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think it stuck with me more than it stuck with anybody else.
Right,
That's the
it
way it
always
usually
does.
goes.
It
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
does. Well, Paul, we have taken up enough of your time here on Old News today, and it has been great to talk with you because,
Yes.
you have done so much over your lifetime and your career. And it's funny how we talk to so many people who have worked in the news business, and it might just be a little tiny part of their career, but you still have memories that kind of all these years later, you still remember them. So it's great to
I
hear.
wouldn't trade those years for
Mhm.
anything. They really prepared you to think on your feet, take complex information and make it understandable,
Yeah.
work with a variety of people, a variety of egos.
Mhm.
That's part of it.
Yep.
And that just helped. That just helped me throughout my career.
Great.
Well,
Well,
thank you
nice
so
to
much for being
officially
with us.
have met you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Carrie. You take care, and you too, Dan.
Thanks for tuning in to Old News with Dan and Carrie.
That's old news for now.
Join us next time.